So welcome. This is day one of Leeds Digital Festival. And we're one of the earlier sessions in the 2 weeks at a Leeds Digital Festival. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to do a bit of an intro around our panel, and then we'll go into sort of presentation mode for about 20-25 minutes. And thereafter, we'll be basically doing a Q&A. So if you do have questions that pop up that you want to talk anything on all things hybrid and multi-cloud, that's what we're here for. So first of all, my name's Howard Hall. I'm the founder of a company called DTP based in Leeds. We're an IaaS company, been around for a lot of years. The company's probably older than a number of people who are actually on the call. Which says something. And outside of that, also been involved in ISV land, successfully exited an AI business that I founded in 2012 at the end of last year. So with that, I'm going to move on to Manesh.
Hi everyone, my name is Manish Buggle, otherwise known as MASH. So I'm a lead solution advisor here at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, effectively helping customers on their journey through all things cloud and cloud experiences. So I'll just leave it as that, and I'll be presenting shortly. So I'll hand over to Chris next.
Yeah, hi everybody. So Chris Dando, I'm an HPE chief technologist. So similar role to Mash's, but really I focus a little bit more at the emerging trends and emerging opportunities and where they might interlocked with our customer strategies.
Chris Allen.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. I am Chris Allen. I'm a global account manager within HPE, so I'm on the sales teams. I do also lead our sales initiative within the UK, and I focus predominantly on sales for tech startups and scale-ups.
And as we've touched on in the intros, this is all about hybrid multi-cloud today. We're coming out from a perspective of one of the world's leading IT companies, i.e. HPE, who are leaders in that particular area. A lot of organizations have grown their businesses successfully using the hyperscalers, i.e. AWS, GCP, and Microsoft Azure. And for a number of years now, we've been sort of articulating the benefits of hybrid cloud as part of that, an add-on to that portfolio. And today's really around, how the technology has evolved or is evolving, and where HPE are investing in this particular area and they go to market. So with that, I'm going to pass over to you, Mash, if that's okay. And yeah, we'll pop on mute.
No problem. Just checking everyone can see my slides here. Are they coming through? Excellent. Okay, so what I'm going to do is spend the next like 20-25 minutes just talking about HPE GreenLake, the cloud that comes to you. Not every cloud has a silver lining. Some are gold or platinum lined, and we have a point of view and a strategy that aligns to what's trying to get ahead of the curve, really. So that's what I'm going to get into. If we think about the trends that are accelerating today, right, in terms of a distributed enterprise, we do recognize these key themes. And these are other reports that are external reports that are kind of coming through here. 92% of enterprises have adopted a multi-cloud strategy, which is not uncommon. You'd expect that to be the case, but it's the interesting stats are the ones below. Around 70% of applications are outside of the public cloud, because there is still certain nuances that are stopping people from putting everything out in the public cloud. And this idea of hybrid starts to take shape. The other stat here is about 50% of data centers will be operated via an as a service consumption model. We are seeing more of a shift to customers and clients trying to getting out of the data center game, actually, and starting to think more like a cloud model. I just want to be able to consume things. But if we think that public cloud and the hyperscalers, and they have been on tremendous growth, but we still do see the questions coming from our customers. How do we improve business agility? It's the outcomes I'm looking for. How do I get the time to value? How do I get there quicker? I really want, by moving something to a public cloud doesn't help me necessarily transform and do things in a different way. A lot of customers and clients are lifting and shifting, but not transforming. So we wanted to kind of think about that. The other question and comments we sometimes get is still about controlling costs. When we start thinking about ingress, egress charges, visibility of IT spend, giving people carte blanche to go and just spin up resources in the cloud, and then getting that bill shock at the end of the month or the year and say, wow, okay, like this is actually costing me quite a lot of money now. Didn't realize it was going to get that way, but not having an idea of who and what business unit are spending on it, etc. So we still see a lot of conversations in this space, in this area. But also the cloud has enabled customers to take things as self-service, and that's the experience that people are looking for, to deploy code faster, to deploy resources. But there's that push and pull with the girl on the left-hand side, which is, well, hang on, we're still trying to control costs here. So it is self-service, but we want to understand how we can control those things. And as I kind of touched on this, if anything, the hyperscalers have taught everyone that you can have a cloud experience, but that cloud experience doesn't necessarily transcend across the entire IT estate. So what do we mean by that? And what do we see by that? Like, clients do say hybrid is the way forward. They think we went through the mantra of cloud first, only cloud, etc. And I think now we're in this world of understanding that the true cloud experience, however, is not everywhere. So yes, on the right-hand side, we can see speed, agility, self-service, pay-per-use. That was all very well understood, but 70% of applications are still residing on the left-hand side. And that's for various solutions, various reasons, whether it be data sovereignty, security compliance, latency, performance, real-time decision-making, these sorts of things. Somewhat of an anchor, I suppose, but also it's the physicality. When we talk about the edge, so we have edge locations, private data center, co-location facilities. Applications are distributed. This is what we mean by the distributed enterprise. And I think when we go through this, we also recognize when we speak to our clients, it's often compounded by the data problem. So there is lots of data spread across in different locations and different applications in different places. But the leaders that have got this right, they achieve 2 to 3x revenue growth compared to their peers. But you can see here, CEOs, they want the organization to be more data-driven, but actually not many have created a data-driven organization. This is somewhat linked, because if we start thinking about hybrid and private and public cloud, this has to come together. And this is an area where actually this influences a lot of the choices and things that will need to be made. Because I think we recognize, and most people do see this, as data is the life force. Regardless of what industry you work in, data is continuing to fuel innovation and starting to push the boundaries. So if we start thinking about some of these outcomes here that you see on the screen, depending on which, your background and where you work, you may be thinking about video analytics and prescriptive maintenance. You might be looking at shopping patterns for retail, for example, or in government, it may be smart cities or cybersecurity, threats around that, financial services, fraud detection, etc. The point of this slide really is just to really kind of refocus the idea that whenever you embark on a transformation that includes cloud or hybrid or private or whatever it might be, we have to keep the outcome at front and center to deliver against that in the most optimized way, because otherwise costs get out of control and you're not seeing the returns that the business might expect. So this is really the focus around data being the life force. So when we approach the problem, from HPE's perspective, it's about getting ahead of those trends. And it's not good enough to just say, we've got a private cloud solution, or we've got a hybrid cloud, like you can manage, bits and pieces from, from AWS, Azure, etc., from this platform, etc. There is more to it. So when we think about approaching a problem with this, strategy and transformation, we often start with the edge-centric approach. We're seeing more and more things happening at a distributed level. When we think about the edge-centric kind of approach and focus, we know lots of things are connected at the edge. We really focus on the experience that the business is trying to impact here to their end customers, right? So if we start thinking of things through that lens, then we recognize that actually there's an outcome. And we have to start thinking about how do we help our clients deliver an outcome that they want. It's fairly well understood that we can deliver this through cloud enablement capabilities. So we effectively think about, it's not about cloud first, but it should be a cloud everywhere, because what's happening at the edge and what's happening in your data centers you really want that experience to kind of transcend, to really impact the experiences at the edge. So if we think about the experience and the digitalization that might occur, it may impact the right-hand side, which is what's happening around the platform choices that we're making and our engineering efforts about how we're going to make these new innovative or very focused proof points really come to life. And in the middle, it's about being data driven. So this is about taking the data, and that's the glue that actually turns what the platforms that you have and the experiences that you're trying to get to, driving through intelligence, but also we can't forget the trust of that data as well. So we're thinking about some cybersecurity, because now data is potentially distributed across the board. So when we approach this, when we think about what can we do as a vendor to help customers on this journey, it's quite simply to just deliver all three of these areas as a service. So if we can do that, then actually it helps customers to really stop thinking about, can I just do this on-prem? Can I do this here? We really need to start thinking about this holistically. So if I get into this customer success stories, this is some of the stories here around Barclays delivering, a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. Ultimately, this is about the bank delivering an enhanced personalized banking experience for its customers in cloud enablement. So this is really, really focused on what they saw as GreenLake as being very, very relevant to them, because in the cloud enabled space, it enables them to consume and to deliver agile and at speed. For the 2023 Ryder Cup, well, that's just around the corner. We were in partnership with them, obviously, to deliver cutting edge technologies at one of the world's largest sporting events. And if you think about what we're delivering here, this is about delivering intelligent, secure, high-performance wired and wireless network platforms. So this is not just talking about the VMs and containers and the data, but actually there's a hell of a lot of data that's created at the edge here. So this is a use case and a success where we focus on edge capabilities. If we look at Carestream as one of our references as well, who were using GreenLake, they needed a secure environment where they could build and run algorithms on de-identified diagnostic images at scale to meet the demands for the agreements that they had with their clients and customers. Now, saving time for Carestream saves lives for everyone else, effectively, is what we kept front and center. So we deployed HPE GreenLake machine learning development environments for them, which had a significant impact on them executing training runs, which took them from things that would take 60 hours down to 16 hours. So these are the outcomes that we try and focus on. And Zensact is the other one where we built a consumption-based platform to deliver thousands of simulations per second to make cars safer for autonomous driving. So this is an example of where we're talking cloud data, a centralized analytics platform that all the way that spans across into the car. So not just the edge, but into the car. And manage that distributed telemetry for AI and ML efficiency. So this is all great, right? This is all GreenLake, and this is what we mean by hybrid when we start focusing on outcomes. But the question then comes, well, how do they do it? Like, what did GreenLake do for them? So what we really focus on is your cloud, your way. And if you think about what that means, it's a unified experience across edge to cloud to deliver against the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. Now, it's underpinned ultimately by HPE GreenLake. So it enables you to fast forward your multi-gen IT and sustainably accelerate your transformation and get to the outcomes the way you want it. So if we unpack what that means, what does that underpinning mean? So simply put, HPE GreenLake is our hybrid cloud offer that delivers cloud services from HPE through edge to cloud at your choice of location, whether that be on edge locations or in a car, private data centers, co-locations, as well as being able to augment and bring in the capabilities of the public cloud when it makes sense to do so. And that's very, very important as well. But obviously, when we think about hybrid cloud, we have to cater to the nuances that we were talking about before: data sovereignty, compliance, and gravity. Now, the platform itself also provides a self-service experience, which is pay as you go, as it says. It's scalable, both up and down, so you can burst up and down. And it's also managed your way. So by deploying a platform that enables you to operate in this way, you ultimately get a cloud experience everywhere. So let's understand that catalog of services that enables the outcomes. If we think of it that way, if we think about opening what the cloud services looks like for the apps and data, we've categorized our cloud services across these 15 categories. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you're doing things around connectivity at the edge, or if you're doing things with AI, machine learning, data analytics, if you're doing edge compute, or it could be high performance computing that's starting to make its way into a lot of enterprises, as an example. So if I give you just a snapshot, if I break this open, there are a whole load of cloud services and details that we can get into, as I say, around connectivity. It could be a container use case specifically for AI ML, or it could be unified analytics based on open source technologies. Because when I go back to this, and I'm not going to go through each of these because I just don't have enough time, but if you start thinking about these are the components and the categories in our service catalog, which ultimately make up the GreenLake platform, well, you can start to have your cloud your way through a unified experience. So it's all well and good having all of these ingredients in there and the capabilities, but we have a formalized method to really deliver against what we mean by that unified experience. If we open that up again, and we think about what I've just described, there are different components and horses for courses for different outcomes, different things that you might want to achieve as a business. So if we think about networking, we've talked about Wi-Fi networking, whether that be indoor, outdoor, 5G. We've made some acquisitions in this space as well. So private 5G would be an example with Ethernet and access security for SASE. For compute, it might be high performance compute, as I've said before, or it's for VDI as a service. So we need to make sure that we have a blueprint and a compute module that supports the GPUs, the right type of GPUs for, say, trader workstations in FSI as an example. Storage. This could be 100% data availability. This is mission critical storage with ultimate performance, or this could be an archive tier to store my CCTV footage so that I can then perform some analytics, etc. on top. If I look at the data management services, this is where we start to unpack some of our capabilities around effectively connecting data and apps across multiple locations, and that includes public cloud services as well. So again, there are use cases for that, or connecting a car to your centralized analytics platform. So there are different things that need to be done for you to kind of pull this together. Now, obviously, at the very easy, the core of this is bare metal VMs and containers, which people have been accustomed to being able to consume from a public cloud provider, as an example. Well, we provide that same thing, but also label that on premises as well. If we look at the top layer, analytics, AI, machine learning, absolutely a key area for when we start looking at that data life force piece. And this is where we kind of lean into some of the things on the right-hand side, like the advisory services. So, things like an edge to cloud adoption framework, we help customers to pick the right mix of deployment of where things should be, what in the public cloud, on-premise, at the edge, etc. We help to define, validate your goals, assess your current operating models against your needs and priorities, etc. And there's a lot in there about how we can also migrate you and make sure you get the best out of the consuming the GreenLake platform. Security on the left-hand side, everything we do has to have a secure cloud experience. So we build upon zero trust principles here. We use identity and privilege as a foundational principle here. We have logs for all the management activity for audit purposes where that's needed for highly regulated industries, etc. But customers maintain and retain ownership of their data always, with bring your own keys for encryption capabilities and things like that as an example. And finally, if I go back to the bottom right, just the financial services. Sometimes we buy back equipment off of customers that are, leveraging, or we can leverage existing investments that have already been made, pre-owned technology, etc. But we also asset lifecycle management, those things as well. So, I think it's like 85% of the 3 million tech assets that are returned to HPE in that way are upcycled and put back into active use, which then takes some of the sustainability metrics that a lot of companies have today as well. So if we think about all of those things, and then finally, because everything is wrapped around the outer layer. You can see here, it's open, elastic, and partner enabled. So if we think about all of the things I've talked about, there are some partners that actually, and there's a growing number. I mean, we've got this is just some examples, right, of ISV partner momentum. So we have like GreenLake for a Microsoft Azure Stack, HCI, if that's the method that you want to go down. Customers that are transforming SAP RISE, or PECDC, for example, we have GreenLake capabilities around that. Citrix VDI, NVIDIA for not just GPUs for VDI, but also AI/ML, etc. The point of this slide is it's not just about compute, storage, and networking. This is about putting together the best of the capabilities that are out there and set them up with all the right best practices so that you can achieve your outcomes. And we've taken it a step further as well, because what we also enable you to do is to have all of that, but also within a co-location. So customers that actually who want to get out of the data center game and saying, well, actually, I like this idea of consuming everything, but I can turn off my data centers and have this stood up in a co-location on a single tenant with a single delivery experience on a single HPE GreenLake agreement with a single monthly invoice. So all those things at the bottom there are taken care of when it comes to network design configuration, physical network security, implement the facilities plans, etc., etc. It's just all made invisible for you because it's taken care of for you. So this is some of the, and I'm kind of keeping this high level to give you an idea that actually when we talk about edge core cloud capabilities, this whole experience actually extends across all of those areas. Now, some customers also want us to lean in a bit further, because if you think about the hyperscalers, when you spin up a VM or a container or what have you, you don't manage any of that stuff behind the scenes, right? So we have an option, obviously, of course, built into HPE GreenLake with the managed option. So when you come in, the idea is it's a point and click experience. You want VMs, you want whatever it is that you want to kind of like consume in terms of telemetry data for Wi-Fi or whatever it might be. You come in and that's your dashboard, a SaaS platform. In the back end, we deploy, we provision, we monitor, we update the firmware, et cetera, all the way around this circle. All you have to worry about is pay for what you use, and you have that data-driven insight so you can start to see capacity and where things extend into. When it's all managed by us, there's some added other benefits that come along with that, right? Because from a monitoring perspective, we can monitor performance, sustainability monitoring and management, et cetera, keep you compliant. Because we are in charge of setting up all the best practices and everything else that comes along for your cloud, your way, we get to an AI ops driven efficiency now. So we're starting to really push the boundaries of this. So we have automatic correlation and remediation going on in the background on your behalf. So we're talking about serious uptime now. And then finally, at the bottom here, the hybrid operations management. So 35% more efficient for operations. And actually, because you all these things on the right-hand side, your teams no longer need to do and worry about. You can focus on the business instead. And the point here, on the bottom right here is HPE multi-vendor products as well. It's not just HPE products as well. So our managed services capabilities can do third party as well. So it's just a point to note. Now, if I open up that GreenLake platform, that square for a second, so that's where your entry point is. You come in and click. This is where we enable customers and clients and everyone else to kind of come in and see things like the capacity. So you can see your trends, how much you're using it, etc. But also just to make you aware, because we have more control over where this is going, edge in a colo or in your data center or wherever it might be, we can build in buffer, and we do build in buffer ahead of time. Now, what this means is you only have to deploy what you really need, not what you think you might need in 3 or 5 years' time, right? So you buy the absolute minimum, we put that in place, and then we put some buffer in so you have the burstability that's available to you. Now, cost controls, minimizing spend across clouds. So when you log into the portal, you can start to see how much am I spending in Azure or in AWS or wherever else. And so you can start to correlate that information. On the right-hand side, obviously, because we can now start to spin up services for developers and the resources alike. And you can see this across your distributed enterprise, no matter where you are in the globe. So you have faster insights to drive this. Now, you can take this for a test drive, and I'll get your phones ready, because I'll throw up a QR code and you can go and log in and create a free account in a second, right? So, but the reason this is a SaaS portal is because we can throw new things into our SaaS portal. You log in tomorrow and you have a new capability. So if you think about things like sustainability dashboards, so customers are crying out for it. This is what we're starting to develop. So now you can start to pull in that usage telemetry and start to see how many kilowatts am I using, in which data center, in what region, in which country, how much is that costing me, and give me some, through analysis, insight, and reporting, give me some recommendations to start to look at that carbon footprint reduction. Can I turn some servers off? Should I be doing, should I be migrating workloads from one location to another because it's cheaper in a different region, as an example? So there's all sorts of insights and things that can come into this. So when you pull it all together, everything I've said, you've got this HPE GreenLake capability with these outcomes. Time, 80% shorter time to deploy IT projects that matter. So IT projects that spun up quickly to get to the outcomes quicker. It's a hugely reduced risk because we have built these platforms, we put them together, we stand them up for you to be able to consume them. So we've built all of the best practices and the integration that's needed to do that. From a cost perspective, 45% reduction in TCO. As I said, there's no need for over provisioning. We put in what you need. So if you think about a migration, you don't need all the stuff up front, because you may be migrating from one place to another over time. And that migration, because of business risk factors or whatever it might be, might take 6 months, might take a year, whatever it might be. If it's an SAP migration, maybe longer. So why buy all that infrastructure and everything up front? You don't need to, which has a direct impact on sustainability. So 30% reduction in carbon emissions, not just because of the GreenLake modeling and the way that it works and the way we deploy, but because of the technologies that we use as well, which are next generation, which are less energy consuming, etc. So you get more capability and performance out of from a smaller footprint. And then finally, the Simplify IT, 65% operational savings. We touched on this one before. So it enables IT to really focus on the strategic business initiatives. So it's not just about me talking about all this stuff. As I said, there's a test drive that you can take this on. So I'll leave the QR code up for a couple of seconds here, and it'll shrink to the top right. If you scan that, if you haven't already got an account, you can sign up for free, and you can do things like take it on a test drive. So this is a workflow that's basically been designed for you. So depending on who you are, you might come in and say, I'm only interested in managing my costs. So you might want to see the showback test drive, or how do I do budget reports, or how do I understand private cloud usage in this scenario? And this is the common denominator, right? Like for all the things we've talked about, you know, if we start thinking about this is where most people will probably want to do on a day-to-day basis. So there's other things here as well, as you can see, like what's happening in my Kubernetes environment, or how do I deploy a chatbot application? Now, some of these workflows might take you a bit of time, but you'll get a feel for what it's like to actually just focus on the doing and getting the information, as opposed to setting up everything with best practices and what have you. So with that, I was done, 25 minutes, not too bad. I thought I'd get there, so I'll say thank you here, and I'll stop screen sharing, and we'll just jump to any questions that have come in.
Thanks, Mash. There are a few questions that have come in and a few that we had in advance. Just a quick question from me, really. The Barclays deal, I mean, you know, it's probably things that you can't say about that, but that was when you competed with Azure AWS for their business. And one of the big things that resonated with me, apart from you being half the cost of AWS and Azure, which obviously you can't mention, was the user experience. So the Barclays CIO talked a big thing about the user experience, and I think that was something that you as an organization guaranteed the user experience against the hyperscalers. You know, that was probably a year and a half ago. Can you you guys elaborate how that has moved on? Because I think that's a big thing for adoption, isn't it? Is that user experience, not just the end user, but also your sort of FinOps, DevOps teams as well.
Absolutely. Chris, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I think we've been firstly we've been expanding the capability with regards to what we do. So if you take the Azure, the AWS type experience, you know, you do basically get the platform and you get it delivered to you, you know, through a portal and so forth. You don't need to worry at all about what is sat underneath that portal with regards to, you know, what's the software, what's the hardware, what's the networking capabilities. You want to be able to access those capabilities, and whether that's through a portal or through API type interfaces. So we've been looking to, you know, we've been developing our capability to make sure that it's software addressable, i.e. you can deploy the capabilities using infrastructure as code and things like that. What we have also been doing is recognizing that what we want is for customers to be able to manage all of their cloud environments through these things. So we've been expanding out the ability for customers to depending on which solution we're looking at, but firstly look at all of their costs across their estate, regardless of whether it's on, you know, HPE GreenLake or whether it's in AWS or Azure or GCP and what have you, to have a central point of contact, central point of where you get that insight from multiple clouds, and then enhancing that so that you can start provisioning capability. So if you want to spin up a new virtual machine, you know, where should it go? And do you don't want to do your, you know, switching from one screen to another to say, actually, I'm going to go into AWS to do it. You know, you've got this single front end capability that enables you to stand up resources, regardless of whether it's on your on-premises cloud through, you know, the HPE technologies that Mash was talking about, or into a public cloud environment, and thereby manage a consistent, you know, posture from a security and authentication and validation of user rights and all of those sorts of things that you would typically need to do those sorts of things.
Cool, thanks, Chris. In terms of sort of, I mean, one of the big statements that we've made collectively, you know, especially you guys, is that hybrid cloud is in future going to be the cloud of choice for a lot of organizations. And it's interesting attending other events at Leeds Digital Festival last year, where larger dev organizations, their different practices were presenting, either GCP practice, or AWS practice, or Azure practice. You know, where do you see the future going in terms of that sort of hybrid cloud, multi-cloud? You know, what you know, where are you making your bets in terms of future there?
So, well, I think it was HPE that coined the phrase, you know, the world will be hybrid about 5 or 6 years ago. You know, where everybody else was saying we're wrong, and you know, it was most of our customers had a cloud first view. It's quite interesting when you look back over that period. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to have everything in a single cloud. I look at it particularly from a different type of workload perspective, and I think even back in those times, people would have said that, you know, they're likely to go to Microsoft for their collaboration experience. Yep. So they're going to get Office 365. You know, they're going to get, you know, Teams, perhaps. You know, whether it be Teams or Zoom, who are on at the moment. You know, or Cisco for WebEx. But those sort of collaboration environments are provided by, you know, some specific organizations. You know, and you might go to Google if you are very much into the Google platform, but lots of people doing, you know, in the enterprise space are using Microsoft across the whole of the estate for that collaboration space, but they're not using Microsoft for their HR systems or their CRM systems and what have you. So there'll be, you know, you got this scenario whereby cloud isn't just the IaaS platform, it's the SaaS piece as well, and you end up with this data spread across multiple clouds, because you've got your, you know, say for example, you've got your, you know, your CRM with Salesforce, and you've got your HR with Workday, and you've got your collaboration with Microsoft, and then you've got, you know, the rest of your environment, which could be your on-premises ERP systems, depending on which industry, or your banking systems and so forth. So there's always been this need for hybrid. I just think that as HPE, we saw it that way right at the start, whereas maybe some other people thought that they were going to be able to conquer the world and everything was going to sit in one cloud.
I'll just touch on a few things here as well. I think when you know, the world is multi-cloud, and the choices, I think that's the word, is there's so much choice out there for customers, right, and clients. Like, where do I deploy? How do I deploy? But one of the things that we talk about around DevOps specifically, right, is actually, you want to build your cloud native applications so that they can be spread across wherever, right? And so that you're just calling upon the applications to use them when they can. But data mobility becomes the thing. Like, how do we move data? And I think that, you know, there's capabilities that we recognize, and we're seeing this across the board, about how we can execute against that. And the transformation realization, if I think about DevOps just holistically, actually, if you think about where customers want to get to, the very first thing is to really kind of take a step back and go edge to cloud strategy. What do I want to do? How do I want to deploy? Am I pinning everything in Azure? Am I pinning everything in AWS? Or do I want that choice to move? Do I want, what does the end operating model want to really look like for yourselves? You then have to pick the right hybrid IT architecture and really focus on your target operating model. And then that helps you to shape the platform, technology, software choices that you want to make. And this is where we come into our own. We do outcome-based solutioning, right? Like we have capabilities, we have partners, we can bring the right things to bring those things to life. And that's inclusive of what I touched on as well around the management services side. So if you want to start delivering infrastructure as code, then the infrastructure, let someone else manage that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, take that off your plate so that your developers and everyone else can just focus on actually delivering a zero touch continuous deployment. Like, that would be like that's kind of like where you want to get to with DevOps, for example. So you want an integrated tool chain, you want optimized throughput throughout, cross-functional agile teams. These are all things that you would have to make sure that internally you're set up in the right way from a operational standpoint to get there. Now, some customers are pushing on those boundaries, getting further up to zero touch continuous deployment without having to worry about anything or what cloud choices being made under the covers. But actually, a lot more people I'm finding are still in some of them, traditional software development lifecycle, and just working out now CI/CD initiatives, looking at process clarity across different business units and different IT segments and data use cases. So it really does depend on, for me, whenever I'm engaging, seeking to kind of like get to the outcome the desired outcomes. It's really taken a real hard look at the operational model that's being deployed today as well. So I just thought I'd touch on that as well.
That's really good points. And then I guess in terms of the client's journey, I mean, we've seen you talked about cloud first strategy, which is typically with a single provider, and the world now is hybrid. It's multiple providers providing multiple things. What do you see as inhibitors to a client going from that sort of single initial strategy to that multi-cloud, hybrid cloud approach?
So I'd probably expand that a little bit, because leaning a little bit on what Mash was just saying, that there's been quite a lot of discussion, as the figure said, 70% of workloads are still not in the public cloud environment, and you say, well, why is that? And it's not just that they haven't moved there yet. So there was an S&P Global review last year that was looking at repatriation. So what you actually see is, and if you find that 50% of organizations, more than 50% of organizations, have repatriated workloads from a public cloud. So it's not just, do I go to the cloud, but it's when is the right time to bring it out of that public cloud and maybe put it back on premises, and that will depend on various situations. I think there's some things that sit in the cloud forever once you get them there. Obviously, if you're going that way, you've got the the age-old problem that says my additional workloads, lifting and shifting them without any re-engineering to the cloud makes little sense. You've got to do some kind of re-engineering of it, because you're going to be re-engineering processes and all of those sorts of things. You might as well be looking at the platform. If you're just lifting and shifting, it's well known that the cost of moving to the cloud is more expensive than keeping it where it was on premises, unless you can actually shut down your data centers in their entirety. So you've got some of these older or traditional, or what we call multi-gen workloads. You can't lift those up and put them right beside a public cloud environment. So you've got to change them if you want to go. And that means application re-engineering effort, it means cost of testing, it means all of those sorts of things that make it challenging. There's also, we speak about the issues with regards to all the expanding landscape from a data side of things, and you start seeing, what are the latency requirements? How much data can I actually get in and out of the cloud? Can I get the data back out of it? And those sorts of things. And interestingly, those are some of the feedbacks that this customer were feeding back to S&P Global. Was really the top reasons why they were repatriating workloads were back to the age-old issues with regards to data security. Are things actually needing to become more mission critical, and therefore the sovereignty of the data becomes more. Performance not being as predictable as you would have wanted it to be, and therefore the latency issues. Are you actually going to impose? It was relatively small, the numbers that were repatriating workloads from a cost perspective, but it was still there, of course.
Cool. And again, just to move things on, I realize we've got 2 or 3 minutes left. A lot of organizations that we're dealing with have never had a data center. They are born in the cloud businesses. They've grown and scaled in the cloud. Do you guys, tools, there's going to come a pivot point, especially in today's economy where, scale up startups that are funded externally, their investors are looking them to slow down the burn or reduce the burn. They're looking to make savings. They have to do. Do you see, toolings that you guys have available to help those sort of organizations make a holistic look at to where that pivot point is from moving to, public to something a little bit more akin to where we live in terms of hybrid?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways that we do it, right? Like, if you think there's always that tipping point, and that tipping point is that shock that I talked about. It's like, oh, but how much is this? And then, and you want to align this to how much revenue your business is making, right? So that's one of the first things. It's like, is this sustainable? And actually, you reach a point. There's plenty of examples out there, like Dropbox and other people that started their journey as into the cloud, and then eventually realized and recognized it's actually a little bit cheaper if I do this on-prem and I get more control over this, right? And then I can start to manage my costs, etc. So the pivot from going from there to back on-prem, this is one of the things, the benefits that we can bring when I talked about co-location as well. You don't want to be in the data center game. Like, that's not for me. Like, I just want to focus on my efforts on producing the software or the products and services that we can kind of deliver. But I want to do this at a more cost-effective way. You talked about Barclays and how that was more cost-effective, and that's not going to be too dissimilar. The bit that we have to kind of like work with clients who are interested in understanding and unpacking if it is cheaper or not is for us to really kind of get under the covers and understand, okay, well, what does your operating model look like? Are you fully on, or are you full cloud native, or are you based on standard VMs? Depending on what you've done and how you've architected your house, to for want of a better word, we have proven migration methodologies and tooling to move you not just back, but also back, backwards and forwards into other clouds as well, if you wanted to. So, with an extended unified data fabric, for example, you can have a single global namespace across AWS, across Azure, across GCP, and on premises, and you can move your workloads around across all of those. So that's specifically for a certain type of use case. We've made acquisitions in this space with companies like Zerto and things like that, which enable replication-based moves, etc. So there's a whole, I'm just skirting off the top of my head now, but like there's a few tools that we would use and methodologies, but a lot of this has to be about the de-risk of moving, as well as not just it's cheaper, so I should move it. Because when you start thinking about security, I'm working with a current bank out in the UAE, and it's they're looking at micro segmentation, so something different and never really done from a networking perspective, and actually deploying that requires a little bit more rigor and understanding about how things and what things are connected to what. So again, migrations absolutely can be done. It's just a matter of working with us to figure out what's the best methodology to do it. But there will come a time when, if you've been a successful business, and I hope you are, there will come a time when it will be like, do you know what, maybe better if I do this in-house. So I'll leave it there.
And I would add one final part to that, it's around supply diversification. Yeah. And really is at some of the basic levels of things. It's all well and good doing your backups and your disaster recovery type capability in a public cloud, but actually when it really goes to the wall, you probably want some supply diversity in there. So why wouldn't you have your backup environment and your DR environment not in the same cloud as you've got the major part of your workload? It makes relatively little sense to me to have your disaster recovery environment inside the same cloud, whether it be in a different availability zone or not, the same cloud provider as you would do the actual workload itself.
And while you mentioned public cloud, we're sort of coming to a close in terms of our time, but you know, I've seen HP are entering the public cloud marketplace, so tell us all about it.
I can take that one if you want, Jeds.
Go on,
Yeah, I
Chris.
might as well contribute something to the call, right? So yeah, so Howard, that's a very shrewd capture you've got there. So we announced at HP Discover this year that we do have intentions to move into the quote-unquote public cloud space with our HPC as a service catalog. But what I would say is that's still in line with our core approach to our go-to-market with our partners, right? Whether that be local partners or service providers, we're deploying capability in tandem with them. And what we've decided to do is partner up with those partners, utilize the data center space, and leverage our best-in-class heritage within the HPC market to deliver HPC at scale, and really focusing on that generative AI space, because that's a real buzz at the moment. It's getting a lot of investment. There's a lot of really exciting things happening that can really accelerate businesses and transform industries and markets. And we're just drawing on our leadership within that space, right, to try and help our customers accelerate those journeys, and hopefully in the long run democratize HPC for enterprises of all sizes, right? Not just for the research bodies or, you know, for super rich organizations out there who have very deep pockets and can invest into very, very large computers. We want to be able to deliver that at scale for all of our customers. And for anyone who's interested, feel free to reach out. There's a lot of really exciting content on that.
It's almost like a try before you commit to buy significant.
Yeah, there's an element
also
of
helps
that,
with NVIDIA's GPUs at certain levels. You can't get hold of them anyway.
Yeah, supply chain is obviously tough at the moment, but yeah, it's something to look into for anyone who's considering, you know, dipping their toes into the HPC space.
Cool. With that, guys, I think we're slightly over, so I appreciate you joining us today as panelists, and I also appreciate everybody who's joined us as attendees today. We'll be pushing out some comms at close of this session. The session's being recorded, so if you did actually want to recap, you're obviously welcome to do that. The recording links will be sent out as well, but that sort of leaves me with the job of saying a big thanks to our panelists and a big thanks to you as our attendees for joining us, and hope you have the great rest of your Leeds Digital Festival. Thanks.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.